So the first thing I need to do is create a random number. So I'm going to go back to the basics of it, and I would like an integer, random num. Notice I used a capital N here. That matters, although you don't have to put it in your program. Just make sure you're consistent if you do. I'm going to set that equal to math.random. So math.random picks a random number between 0 and 0.999999999, so on. If I want it to create a number between, let's say, 1 and 100, I'm going to need to multiply this. So you can do addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division in a line of code, and the computer will figure that out for you. Times is the asterisk symbol, and divide is the forward slash. Now, you notice that it's complaining about something here. So I've written something that Java doesn't think is correct, and it underlines in red in Eclipse when it thinks that's the case. And if I hover over this, it'll say, type mismatch cannot convert from double to int. So what's going on is random, it turns out, is a double. It has a decimal value. When I multiply by 100, it still thinks this whole thing is a decimal value, and I'm putting it into a whole number. And Java's like, you can't do that, you crazy person. So what I need to do is take this decimal number and make sure that it's actually an integer. I can do that by casting it. It's not a magic spell. What it is it's changing it from one type of thing to another. So what I do is I put parentheses around the thing I'm going to change, and then just before that, in parentheses again, I'm going to say what thing I'm changing it into. This is an int. What that will do is it'll take this double, it'll chop off the decimal, so it'll truncate it, not round it, and then put it into random num. So just to make sure this is working, let's print out what that is. Run this. 44. Try again. 29. 82. I think I would actually like to go from 0 to 100, so I'm actually going to go to 101. This won't quite get to 101, because 0.9999 times 101 is never going to reach 101, and I'm truncating, not rounding, so that should give me 0 to 100. All right, so the next thing I should try doing is inputting something from the console. So I can output using system.out.println, but input's a lot harder to deal with. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use some built-in libraries in Java that I happen to know about and read in from those. So the first thing I'd like to do is create a string that's going to be my input and set it equal to the empty string for now. This is not a space, this is a string with absolutely no characters in it. Next, I need to create something called a buffered reader. So a buffered reader is something that reads in a whole group of characters at once. And eventually I need to take in the stuff from the console that I'm typing in down here. I will name this buffered reader BR. Why not? Now, Java doesn't know quite yet what's going on with buffered reader. Notice it's complaining. In order to use a buffered reader, it's in a different library than the default one, so I actually need to import it. Fortunately, in Eclipse, if you hover over it, it'll give you some things you can do, and one of them, hey, is import. Notice it added this line up here. This is where the buffered reader is located, is in java.io, and importing it allows me to use this. I could have just typed this line right here if I knew the location of it. It turns out there's another one I'm going to need called an input stream reader, so I'm just going to put that in right now. Java.io. Notice as you start typing and you hit a period, it'll actually suggest things for you. It's kind of like multiple choice programming. So the one that I need is input stream reader. To actually read in, there is the possibility that for whatever reason the console is broken. And Java doesn't like it if something might break on you and says, hey, this might break on you. Make sure that you try and catch any errors that might occur because of this. And the way that Java does that is it uses something called a try-catch block. So try, it tries to run any code between those two braces, And then I'm going to say which exceptions I'm going to catch. I'm going to catch all exceptions. Capital E exception will catch all of the exceptions that might possibly occur, including input-output, which is going to be an issue here in a moment. And then I'm going to say what I'm going to do here. I think what I want to do is print out the error. So exceptions allow you to print something called a stack trace, and that'll show you where the error occurred. Still complaining because I haven't put a semicolon in. So here, I need to create this buffered reader. I've assigned space for it, but I haven't created it yet. And then I need to read in a line of input. BR is a new buffered reader, capital B and R. Inside of that goes a new input stream reader. Inside of that goes system.in, which is the console window. That is a mighty line of code. So input streams, system in is something called an input stream. It's just a constant stream of characters and bytes and bits coming in. What I'm doing is I'm changing that into a reader, which allows me to read one line at a time. And then a buffered reader allows me to grab a whole bunch of letters all at once instead of having to grade them in one at a time. So this whole line is setting up a reader. Now to actually use a reader is much easier. So I'm going to say input equals BR, and it has an ability to say read line. Capital L on this, open and close parentheses at the end, semicolon for the end of the line. So now, so sys out, I can see what is an input. So I'm going to run this. Notice it's still running. This stop block hasn't finished yet. So it's still running this program, but it's waiting for something. Oh, well, it's waiting for me to type in a line. So I printed out 29 from here. Now I need to do something. Hi. And I hit enter. And it printed out this line here. Very cool. So let's say that I want to guess a random number. So it picks out a random number, and then I want to guess something. So how do I make it change this string? Notice input is a string. And how do I change that into an int? Because remember, if it's a different type of thing, it won't let you assign one to the other. So if I do int guess equals input, it's complaining, and the reason why is you can't convert a string to an int just like that. There's a function that'll allow me to do this. Capital I integer dot parse int, and then in the thing I want to do, this changes whatever is here, whatever text this is, to an integer. It turns out there is a double.parseDouble, which allows me to take strings and change them to doubles. There's actually a Boolean one as well.